we are going to create one more testing scenario for the activity form component. And in this scenario, we're going to check that after we submit the form submission button has to be disabled again. So let's copy one of these tests in here, paste it one more time at the bottom, and rename the description. This time it will be "it disables submit button after form submission." So as the first step, we're gonna render the activity form component, and then let's find an input field and populate it with arbitrary value. And right after that, we're expecting to see that the button will no longer have disabled attribute since we have populated an input field. So we are comparing the value of this attribute with non-defined. But again, this time we're getting familiar error because we have rendered this component by using shallow mount function, and by using this function, none of the children components will be rendered. But we are trying to check that one of the child components, that is base button, actually doesn't have an attribute, so shallow mount function is not going to work in this case. I'm gonna replace this function with mount function. But still we're getting an error because Vue updates the DOM asynchronously, and Vitest finishes test execution before Vue gets a chance to update the DOM. So we have to wait until Vue can update the DOM after we have populated an input field. Let's use await in front of this instruction and make this whole testing function synchronous. And this way our last expectation will be executed right after Vue gets a chance to update the DOM and actually remove attribute disabled from the button. And the test is passing, but actually we have to check that the disabled attribute will be on the button again right after we're gonna submit the form. And when we submit the form, this submit event has to be fired. So we have to emulate form submission to check for it. Let's find the form and trigger submit event. And this operation is also synchronous, so let's use await in front of this instruction. So you will be able to properly update the DOM after this event will be handled. And right after this, we can write our expectation and check that disabled attribute is present on the button again. And everything is okay, the test is passing. But I prefer to write these assertions in a little bit different way, just like we have done before, by using toHaveProperty method. In the first case, we're checking that the disabled property will not be present on the attributes objects. That is why we're using modifier not in front of the toHaveProperty method call. And right after we have submitted the form, we're going to use that same method toHaveProperty, but this time we're checking that the disabled property is present on the attributes object, like so. And the test is still passing. But the moment I'm gonna comment out this statement to submit the form, we're expecting to see our test failing. Or for example, if we're gonna change implementation of the activity form component by removing this submit event handler, this time we're also going to get our test failing. Or if we're going to remove this disabled attribute from the base button component, it will also cause the test to fail. At the end, let's revert all the changes that we have made inside the activity form component, switch back to the test, and remove modifier only. Let's see if all our tests are passing. And they are. Let's continue in the next lesson.